Welcome to the Subjective Professor Podcast, where we reject coercion and hypocrisy. It's Tuesday, May 20th, 2025, episode 392, and we're going to do a lighthearted episode with Oscar Wilde, Selfishness and Unselfishness. Okay, maybe a little cheeky there, but yeah, I had to attend a recital and et cetera, et cetera. So just going to do a quick episode on a quote that I saw from Oscar Wilde. But first, it's frustrating to listen to Trump say that the Ukraine war is not his war, and yet he keeps sending money and weapons over there. It's tragic. Is it because the deep state is that powerful, or is it because he believes the propaganda himself? But there are bigger issues afoot, and I don't mean the Epstein list, but Vince Lancy today, he was on fire on the Arcadia Economics Goldfix podcast, daily podcast, and that's because the gold price is now controlled by China in Shanghai. The COMEX, that's the Commodity Exchange, and the LBMA, the London Bullion Market Association, they've lost control of the gold price, and they did it to themselves. And I'm pretty sure it was his critique of them that they let it happen, right? So the gold fix, Vince Lancy and I guess everyone over there had what they called a COMEX death watch. But I think he implied that today was the day, right? That the death has happened because China's calling the shots, which, from a financial point of view, it's likely that Trump won't have a choice moving ahead. Not only are we inferior when it comes to weapons with the so-called developing world like Iran, Russia, China, but also fiscally, monetarily, financially speaking, we've lost the plot, we've lost control. And so, yeah, things are happening very, very quickly on the everyday level of the average person like me. You only see it in snippets, right? Like the rising prices of groceries. But there are other things happening. And for the average person, when everything does finally go sideways, it'll be like, wait, what? How did this happen? Where's it coming from? It'll be kind of a surprise. So, Oscar Wilde, I had to teach Ideal Husband. Well, I elected to uh, teach the play Ideal Husband. He did write The Picture of Dorian Gray, which I've never read. I haven't even really watched a movie on it, but that's Oscar Wilde. He wrote those stories. Um, he was likely gay and Irish, which is basically two strikes in England at the time. It was kind of an open secret, apparently. And even though he was married and had kids, he probably had a little something, something on the side. Uh, but people left him alone, number one, because he was really popular for writing these awesome plays. He was popular among the wealthy. He was making people a lot of money and probably a lot of wealthy women, because they liked him so much. They pretty much left him alone. But he got into an affair with the son of a politician, a lord, and that was it. He was put on trial. He was sent to prison, 2 years hard labor. When he got out, he got sick and died. And I read somewhere when I was teaching the play Ideal Husband, there was something that I read something where it said that being in prison weakened him. But a lot of people believe that he died of syphilis, but no, it was a misdiagnosis by Oscar Wilde himself. But it was an ear infection which led to acute meningitis. So that's Oscar Wilde in a nutshell. Somewhat tragic. He died when he was 46. which is a very young life, I have to say. So here's the quote that I saw. It was really good. So anyway, here it is. Selfishness is not living as one wishes to live. It is asking others to live as one wishes to live. Unselfishness is letting other people's lives alone, not interfering with them. Selfishness always aims at uniformity of type. Unselfishness recognizes infinite variety of type as a delightful thing, accepts it, acquiesces in it, enjoys it. And that's the quote. It's a beautiful quote, I have to say. So let's go through it line by line, and that'll be the episode for today. So, selfish, the word selfish, it has a lot of baggage, just like greed. And I've deconstructed greed in earlier episodes. I'm pretty sure that it's in the title. So if you're interested in looking at that in more detail, but otherwise, the way I define greed is that you want more than what you have now, which makes all of us greedy. But yet people still use the word and it's used as a pejorative. In other words, you use it to just label someone as being bad. So stay away from that person. In the same way, that's what selfish is. Oh, that person is selfish. Well, the problem is that we're all selfish. In other words, we all make choices to benefit ourselves. Even when we try to help others, we believe that it benefits ourselves, right? And so we're always making decisions for ourself. That's selfish. And so then now the subjective aspect comes in. At what point is it bad? Eating good food, is that selfishness? Exercising to stay healthy, getting a good night's sleep, not having bad destructive habits. At what point are we going to say, oh no, that's selfish? And so we begin, and greed is the same way. There's a little bit of other nuance, but you can listen to those episodes if you are really interested. But it's subjective, really, right? Who is selfish and who is not. And you can bet that the person who calls someone else selfish, they're probably guilty of the same exact thing. So as long as everyone pays for their own selfish choices, no one should really care what someone else does, unless, of course, the selfish choice that other people make results in damage of your property, infringement of your rights. So we really also have to do away with this idea of normal. Right? There's a range with all things. And so, therefore, what level of selfishness or greed even is acceptable or quote unquote normal? We really do have to do away with that, the idea that we have to find what is normal or the range that is acceptable. Because you may be normal, quote unquote, in certain things, but then extremely abnormal in other things. Um, so, uh, life levels out publicly. Like, so when we're in public, we generally come to learn and understand decorum, etiquette, manners. But in private, things are much, much different, right? And isn't that what people seek, that intimacy where you can sort of be yourself in private, and then publicly you can be what you try to project the image that you want other people to see. So, having established that selfish is not necessarily a bad term, with a fresh look, let's look at this quote. So, selfishness is asking or making others live as one wishes to live. In other words, what's selfish is to look at other people and say, oh, you shouldn't do it that way. You should do it the way that I do it because I think I'm right. And we see people trying to force other people to conform to that person's vision of correct behavior. And these are basically the busybodies, the Karens, the authoritarians, the hypocrites. All of these people are strive to make other people live in a way and a manner that is acceptable to them. Unselfishness is letting other people live the lives they want, not interfering with them. In other words, give people their freedom, and they will do what they think is best for themselves. They will make the choices which will result in the most amount of gain for themselves. And if they fail, it turns out that their free choice was a bad choice, well, then so be it. They have to live with the consequences. But if they are successful, then again, let them go. Let us learn from their example, but do not try to put other people into a small box, which is in your mind, right? Which fundamentally is a hypocritical endeavor. Next line. Selfishness always aims at uniformity of type. And we're talking here about homogeneity, intolerance of the different. And over the episodes, I have talked about the intolerance that exists in the university, um, the intolerance that exists with growing government control and power in society. They just cannot tolerate different. Oh, you're not doing it in a way that I can control you, right? You found a loophole. Now I can't control you anymore. So that means I have to write more laws, right? And this is the pattern that we live in. People are striving for uniformity while they talk about diversity. So all the talk about diversity, it's fake, right? It is a prescribed diversity, which is fake diversity, right? So do it this way and you'll be diverse. But if you just let everything go and let everyone make their own choices, that diversity is unacceptable, right? And so it's a very narrow, hypocritical way of thinking and understanding things. So much of the world today, that's what we see. The United States looks at other countries and says, no, 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 you got to do it this way or else I'll bomb you. Do it this way or we'll impose sanctions on you. Do it this way or else. And so, really, today, what we see is the phenomena of criminalization of much of the population, right? You criminalize them, which then justifies bad treatment of them, and it just escalates from there to genocide, to racism, to disenfranchisement, concentration camps, whatever, the whole nine yards. And it's a gradual process. The next line is unselfishness recognizes infinite variety of type as delightful. Accept it, acquiesces in it, and enjoys it. This is the recognition of the infinite number of racial categories or racializations. I talk about this all the time, right? All a racial category is an adjective. That's it. And so how many adjectives can you put on yourself? And chances are, yeah, you'll have lots of almost uncountable number of adjectives that can be applied to you. And especially that only increases because the people who are looking at you look at you from their subjectivity. And so what something might be considered generous by you is stingy by someone else, right? And so the number of labels really are infinite, right? That a person can be put into. But see, this is a good thing. The fact that we are all unique makes conformity boring and oppressive, right? And it's the differences between us that makes us interesting, right? And I've talked about the what humor is all about, and the aspect of racial categories are that basically when we create a generalization, we are at the same time creating a stereotype. And so if we're talking about people, if you turn out to be exactly as the stereotype, then chances are people are going to consider you boring because there's nothing interesting about you. But when you break that expectation, you break the stereotype, then we create interest, right? People become interesting. And you hear that every once in a while. Oh, that person, he's weird, but he's interesting because that person is different. If we were all the same, we all looked the same, we all acted in the same way, right? We would probably all die of boredom or die because we are living in a regressive society with no creative thought to innovate, to create something new and different, especially when it is needed. Like there's a flood, there's a hurricane, there's an earthquake. We need to figure out what to do. Oh no, we're all boring and a uniform. So there is no variety of thinking unless someone tells us we don't know what to do, right? And so the differences from person to person is what sustains society. It what keeps us interesting, and that's what we look for in lifelong partners. We look for something that is different, right? And therefore, it is something to enjoy. It is the stuff of life, as I like to say sometimes. Now, the people who say they don't like change and they don't like variety, like that's not the way it's supposed to be done, they actually did once upon a time. And then they settled on what they thought was correct, was right, was proper, right? And then they all became conservatives, right? And so this is the thing. Like a lot of people, when they're younger, they're kind of radical, they're kind of edgy, and then they find something that they like. They declare this the height of morality. They may even participate in some protests, some sit-ins, and then they become conservatives, right? Then they live there in those so-called edgy beliefs because they think they will always forever be edgy. Wrong, right? The edgy becomes normal. And then, but a lot of those edgy people think that they're still edgy. Then they see the rest of the world from their conservative position. And then other people become unacceptable. But they must let other people continue to have freedom, freedom to change, freedom to improve, freedom to do something different, freedom to not be boring. And think about it also, our starting points are all different. So we're all going to appear different on some level because none of us are sharing the same exact life. Now, today, with the ability to weaponize laws, like, for example, as they did in the time of Oscar Wilde, where they put him on trial for indecency, right? Which is basically the polite way of saying he was gay. We're going to go after him because he was gay. And then after you weaponize the laws and you create enough hate, then it leads to violence. And once you dwell in the violent world for a while, you get exhausted and then repeat, right? The exhaustion results in new legislation to ensure conformity, and then we start all over again. So we get exhausted from all of the violence. We don't get exhausted from peace, right? We start experimenting, and then someone legislates morality, and so bad choices become the norm, and that's how we drift into weaponization and violence. I've said many times already that what is moral, what is actually good, it's always going to be in flux, right? And so we have to always be able to roll with the changes. Yes, REO Speedwagon reference there. Roll with the changes. So stay free, everyone. That's it for this episode. Stay free, keep preaching freedom, and luxuriate in the infinite variety of people. That's a meat eater reference right there. But anyway, luxuriate in the infinite variety of people, the diversity that is natural life. All right. That's it for this episode. I will talk to you next time.